Gosh, that 20 minutes isn't a lot of time. We have some students here who are used to seeing me on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, particular students here. And they know that I can talk an hour and a half with no problem at all. So let me just set my watch here. I think the way that I'd like to begin is just to remind us of the big picture for a minute. In the United States, the most popular job is that of retail salespeople. The second most popular job is that of cashiers. The third most popular job is that of the office clerk. The fourth most popular job is food preparation. The fifth, registered nurses. The sixth, waiters and waitresses. The seventh, customer service reps. 8, janitors, 9, laborers, trades, stock, and material movers. And 10, secretaries and administrative assistants. And I want to start there to just to say that there's just two positions there where a college degree might be required. Well, one where a college degree is required, the second where one might be required. And I do think we're in this time where we all know that poverty, we've never had more poor people in this country. We've had a higher percentage of poverty during the Depression, but we've never had so many poor people, nearing 50 million at this point. In some cities, like the city of Syracuse, it's half of the children live in poverty. It's 1 in 4 children in the United States. And you have to sort of look at it in context. When work was doing really well in the 50s and 60s, the Johnson administration said, we're going to solve poverty by making sure everybody has a job. We're going to have training initiatives to pay everybody a job. Today we're at a time when education is a major sector of the economy, educational growth. And the message is, well, the way to get a job is through higher education. The problem with both, all kinds of problems with both of those solutions of poverty. First of all, obvious, right? That education is the solution to poverty. Here I have a college professor who will tell you that education is a really terrible solution for solving poverty. The problem with education and poverty is that the largest employers in the United States and the most common jobs in the United States are requiring education. The other problem is that roughly 19% of U.S. society gets a bachelor's degree. At the community college up on the hill at OCC, we're one of these great institutions, which is why I'm there, where we have a open door admission policy. Anybody can come. We don't say no to many people. If you're a threat to other students, we might restrict your admissions. But other than that, you have an opportunity to get degrees. As long as you have it, you can even get a GED education. So it's the most democratic form of education we have, and it's great for that reason. But one of the things we don't talk about much is that going from first semester to second semester, you lose 50% of your students. 50%. And so, the sort of, yeah, sure. If you want a middle class job, it really helps to get an education. There's no doubt about that. You can look at those numbers all day long. If you go back to 1955, 65, in that era, you'll see that with a high school degree, the difference between the median wage, weekly wage, between one with a high school degree that worked 40 hours a week in 1960 and one with a bachelor's degree that worked 40 hours a week is about $80. Today, it's about $1,000. So certainly education is, the way to get. I don't misunderstand it. If you want a shot at a middle class job, I think I would we have to realize that education is the way. But I think we have to realize that really we're in an economy where most people don't get bachelor's degrees. And most of the jobs don't ask for them. And, that's, what's the solution for poverty becomes a really sort of important question. And I think that's what we have to wrestle with. I'm here to talk about temporary work. So if we measure temporary staffing as a form of work, a kind of job in the United States, it's the third largest employer. Today, right now, this morning, there have been 3.1 million workers dispatched through the temporary health industry. It's a fairly large industry. I want to just focus here on this industry for the bulk of my talk. Talk about how it's really restructured employment standards in the United States and in the world, for that matter. So I got into this line of work working with homeless men. I dropped out of graduate school after I was going to become a father and sort of feeling like I had to roll up my sleeves and get a job. And, as many people do, right? So I took a job earning $16,000 a year running Unity Acres, which is a homeless shelter in Orwell, New York. Anyway, the point is that when I took that job, I wasn't ready for what happened. More and more young men were coming to the Acres for shelter. And for those of you in the room who are working with homeless populations, there's been a real shift in the last 30 years of who's homeless. You go down to the rescue mission and see who's eating meals, you realize that lots of them are 20. These aren't the sort of old war vets that we sometimes stereotype as the homeless. These are young 30, 40, 50-year-old men who have had full-time work at some point in their life and don't anymore. So when I'm at the Acres and I'm taking in new clients, and they're telling me that they've had full-time jobs, and they've lost those jobs, and when they've lost those jobs, they get conflicts with their family, and those conflicts in the family turn up to the streets, and then they end up at an employment agency to get dispatched to a new job. They think that the job's going to become permanent, but it doesn't, and they get a couple of days work here, a couple of days work there, they go home, their families are saying, what's wrong with you? Why can't you get a full-time job? What's wrong with you? And what we've sort of ignored is that employers have really readjusted how they employ people. They don't want to employ people full-time anymore. And that's something I think we have to wrap our heads around to understand this poverty problem we have in the United States. So it was the men that I was meeting that encouraged me. One of them's name was Slim, and he said, hey, you're into this work stuff. You seem really interested in it. Why don't you come on the job with me? So the next day, we went down to the labor levy across the street from the rescue mission on Dahlia Avenue. And neither of us got a job. Second day, neither of us got a job. Third day, neither of us got a job. I said, look, I got to do work too. I can't just wait around here all day and not get work. And he said, yeah, think about how we feel. We got to do this and we don't have income. At least you make $16,000 a year. Well, on the fifth or sixth day, we finally got dispatched, both of us, on the back of a waste management garbage truck. Sort of significant because waste management then, this is 1998, waste management then is a New York-based garbage company, and it's grown out of downstate. It used to be just a New York City garbage company. And today they're the largest garbage company in the world, largely because of their use of wage laborers for drivers that are non-union, and temporary workers for everything else, recycling, throwing, etc. And that, in using that model of employment, that you have drivers, one driver per truck, and you rationalize that because you can always use this surplus of temporary workers that are available to you. Now, that has allowed them to buy out most of the union garbage routes here in Syracuse, Capital Fair, etc. And they've done that all, and here's how it works, right? They show up at your house with okay, $50, like, come on, do your garbage pickup. And we're going to charge you $50. And we're going to give you a shiny can that you can put your garbage in as well. How do you say no to that, right? They're saving you $20 and giving you a can. Well, house by house becomes route by route, right? And the market of the sort of residential market starts to shrink, and as the residential market starts to shrink, the cities in the middle then become next. And that's how Waste Management has become the largest garbage company in the world. Anyway, point is, we got on that truck. And that day, standing in the back of us were two workers who had lost their work at Fair as garbage throwers, because Fair was going to do what Waste Management does to try to compete. And they said, they were in back of us in the room. So I got the job over a garbage thrower. I wasn't a garbage thrower, right? They were making $20 an hour at Fair. They were going to make $7.40 that day if they had gotten on that garbage truck, but they didn't. A few days later, they do. They thought that it would be the way back with the garbage thrower, but 4 years later, unfortunately, they were living in the restoration process. That's not an unpopular story today, and it behooves us to understand, sort of how we got here. So, first of all, this isn't a new moment in history, which I'm always amazed at as I read the history of temporary work in this country and in the world. Those scholars of wage labor understand that it's a pretty sad history in creating an experiment between the contest of worker and business. And we're in a moment, clearly, with the workers losing, but there have been some moments where we've done better, and you probably know those. But early on in this country, there were lots of employment agencies. When I go back to the newspapers in the late 1700s, in Philly, Boston, cities that are emerging, there are employment agencies, and what they do is not unlike what they do today. Those that had 3-day empleos, those employment agencies that specialize in dispatching lots of Mexican migrants and Latino migrants, they don't operate any differently than the ones that did in 1778, 1779, and 1780. The migrants and immigrant workers, they came over. They went into those agencies looking for work, and those agencies rented them. They didn't dispatch them to full-time work. They realized early on that the benefit was to keep them and rent them. And, by 1880s, 1890s, you can read in the papers that there's lots of talk about extortion and how this is keeping the poor, creating skid rows, and of course it was all of this. And well, the critique of employment agencies really started to rear its head by the early 1900s. So much so that there was all sorts of police authority given to regulate them, cities, states. In fact, in 1916, the state of Washington, in a public referendum, decided to outlaw them. They outlawed them. It was a public vote. 80% of the people said, we don't want them. Joe Adams, one of the owners of a major employment agency, sued. Sued said, this is my right to have a business. I'm just sort of pursuing my happiness, right? Working for members. And he goes to court, goes to first state of Washington Supreme Court. Then it goes on to the Supreme Court of the United States in 1919. Adams versus Tanner, Tanner being the state attorney for the state of Washington, fights the case. and loses in a 5-4 decision. And to read the dissenting views of 4 judges in 1919, and you would think that you were just reading the critique of today. But the dissents mattered then, and the international labor organizations were growing, and unions were starting to grow. And the people had spoken. The people had said, this is extortion. You can't rent workers. So what we started to see was a real regulation against employment agencies. And the YMCA creates agencies, metropolitan agencies are developed in major cities. Cities are running them, they're free. They really try to take out the middle, right? Turn the triangular employment relationship of broker, the one who rents you, worker over here, and the place you work, to take that triangular relationship and flatten it, right? So no more broker, no more profit from the broker, but to balance a relationship between worker and employer, they had some success. But nobody has more success than the hiring hall. And when hiring halls, which are union run in the late 20s and early 30s, start to have success with a closed shop, meaning that you could come in to my hall. If this was a hall and you came in here, I could evaluate your level of skill, and if you had the right skill, and send you out on a union card, make you a union member, etc. But that force, the hiring hall, didn't totally end employment agencies, but really restricted them considerably. Well, then in 1947, the Taft-Hartley Act writes policy that makes the closed shop defunct, except for reconstruction. And what's interesting, I think, historically, is that by 1948, we have the birth of companies today that make $28 billion a year in temporary work. We're talking about the birth of county services, the birth of Manpower, 1948, 1949 in that order. And since then, these corporations, as they've become super powerful, the temporary help industry globally is a $400 billion a year industry globally. In the United States, it's a $200 billion a year industry. So with that power, what do? They write laws, or they at least push for it. I think they don't write it too, but one of the ways they've written it is in 1980, they wrote something called the Regulatory Flexibility Act, which is really largely ignored in America. And what that act basically said is that temporary work, it just promoted temporary work, and it said it's good. Look, Alan Greenspan really got behind it. He said, look at how good temporary work is. It doubles employment. In 1980, the top 10 employers in the United States employ 4 million people. By 2000, the top 10 employers in the United States employ 12 million people. In 1980, there isn't one of them that's a temporary work agency. By 2000? By 2003, of the top 10 employers in the United States are employment agencies. You got 2 minutes. So it's we go back to sort of start of this country, and one of the things we have to, I think, realize is that temporary work isn't sort of mom and pop employment agency shops on the corner dispatching the casual worker, the casual miner. Today they are powerful and big, and there's all sorts of quandaries to wrestle with their growth. I just want to give you a sense of their scope in my last 2 minutes. I'm just going to focus here on U.S. employment agency firms, so that this is just for the U.S. There's many global agencies that are bigger than this. Kelly Services last year made $4 billion. They 63% of that revenue was in the United States. The rest of it was global. They're in Belgium, Canada, China, Denmark, France, Germany, Hong Kong, Hungary, India, Indonesia, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, Malaysia, etc., etc., etc. Manpower made $5 billion last year. They employ 4 million workers in the globe. 180,000 men are dispatched in the United States a day. Robert Half out of California. Robert Half owns all kinds of brands of temp agencies. Office Temps, Robert Half, the creative group. The parent company of that first place I worked, Labor Ready, there's 2 labor locations in the United States. Labor Ready has 880 locations in the United States. That day that I walked into Labor Ready with my homeless friend and worked out of there, I didn't know who they were. I didn't know if they were local. I didn't know who's this company, right? And then, back then they had 400, they had 880 locations in the United States. But they're just a brand of a company called True Blue that owns them. That's the parent company. And True Blue owns Spartan, CLP, Skill Trade, Central Line, Plain Text, Transtex. These are all. They're in Puerto Rico, they're in the United Kingdom, they're in the US, Canada. They made $4 billion, rough year for them last year. $4 billion. Top 5 shareholders of these companies. Dimensional Fund, Franklin Resources, the Vanguard Group, J.P. Morgan, Price and Rowe, Wellington Management, Vanguard again, Latif Management, Vanguard again, Bank of New York Mellon, Royce Associates, and just and here's the one I just want to hit for a second. Stop. Okay, I'm going to stop on this note. TIAA Credit, my retirement. Here I am negotiating a contract at OCC with colleges in New York. And my own retirement company is the 6th largest investor in the company that I went to work for with my homeless friend. We're all wrapped up in this. And I guess that's something we really have to ask. Just one last point, which is that the legalization of the opening up of the legitimization of temporary employment in the most acceptable sense, Wall Street, right, is what has allowed it in the last 15 years to proliferate incredibly amongst migrant workers. And that's a whole other subject, but an area I'm willing to hit on. And if you'd like to read more, you can access basically everything I've written on these industries just by searching my name.